Dr. Cavett, and I am going to do a quick video showing the professional library at Chrysalis. This is a section on play therapy. Everything from the Marshak and Theraplay, superheroes, lots of great resources, Lowenstein, school-based sand play, really awesome work. There's David Crenshaw, who is the training director at Astor Home for Children, which is why I wanted to go there. That's where I did my internship. Lots of Schaefer because you have to have lots of Charlie. And he's written 5 million things. And Ileana Gill, whom I love. Landreth and Sue. So some really awesome, amazing resources around play therapy. You know, Virginia Axeline, yes. Nancy Davis, so lots of really good things. Crenshaw and Kevin O'Connor and Athena Drews, who became the training director at Astor Home. So lots of wonderful resources on play therapy. Many from Schaefer again. Ileana Gill, who is a rock star in the field of treating children, especially with trauma. Some more play therapy books. This, oh, that's an award from the Association for Play Therapy, but this is a even more amazing award that my little one made me the sculpture of me holding her as a baby. She had seen a sculpture I made of me holding her as a baby, and the next day she brought home this one that she made for me that looks very similar to the one I made, that she wanted me to have of her being held when she was a little one. And there's some more Virginia Axeline. Lots of Lowenstein and some animal assisted play therapy, Theraplay stuff. Lots of Phyllis Booth, who I love and respect. Wonderful supervisor and human being. Lots of things on play. And then this is a section that I want to access when I'm doing supervision. So some of the good old helping skills and basic things when you're learning. And actually this little piece of artwork is from my friend Karita Shachuk, Dr. Shachuk, when she retired. And these wonderful mandalas that were knitted are from my daughter, my other daughter who's older. And these are lots of just nice basic resources for clinicians when they're, especially when they're just starting. And you know, DSM's back to the TR from when I was president at NDPA. Some supervision stuff and ethics. And then these two bookshelves are Neuroscience. Neuroscience is really where we're at with treating children and adults. This top section has a lot of stuff basically about consciousness, but mixed in some other things. Lots of Daniel Siegel. And then other neuroscience stuff around morality. Oh, Causalino, we invited him to North Dakota to present, and I could read his books hundreds of times. They are just so good. He's friends with Daniel Siegel. Oh, and Daniel Siegel's work. And Bruce Perry. Some more Causalino. You know, things from Ledoux. Lots of just stuff on neuroscience. Because when we think of neuroscience, that's where we're at with treatment. We're really looking at polyvagal theory and how do we treat people based on what we know about the brain. Vygotsky, I love so much. His information is so informative, even though he lived in Russia quite some time ago. This is a bunch of information on polyvagal theory. I have some other stuff on polyvagal theory as well, but when I met him, I was really happy because he liked that I had highlighted a lot of stuff that was what he thought was very important information, which it was. That one I like to give to young therapists. So a lot of neuroscience. Oh, lots of Siegel and Causalino again. Theraplay information. And of course Bruce Perry, who I admire and love. Lots of stuff on dissociation. Brain models. That's a neuron that my daughter knitted. Oh, this is the book that Porges wrote when he was taking all of his research on polyvagal theory. That's the one that he was like, oh, you've highlighted all the stuff that's important. And I was like, yeah, I pretty much am a nerd. And then this is a lot of information. Up here, there's a lot of stuff on pain, chronic pain. But also this whole area has a lot of information on trauma. So in a nutshell, this bookshelf is about trauma. Lots of stuff about abuse. Dissociation again. Ileana Gill kind of goes across a bunch of stuff on EMDR. And more dissociation. Oh, this book from Steele is amazing. Very good. And the neurobiology of attachment focused therapy, some good stuff. And then I think these are Peter Levine's DVDs. When the Body's a Target, we look at all that stuff from Vanderkolk. There's a lot of Vanderkolk in here. A lot of stuff by Ogden, and of course the trauma-focused CBT for children and adolescents. I'm very honored to have done a couple chapters, written a couple chapters in that one too. And the sensory motor stuff is just so good. And Bruce Perry's kind of sprinkled throughout the library everywhere. Lots of stuff on EMDR. And some things on resilience, on EMDR. We're looking so much at the body now too with trauma. So this section has 4 bookshelves of trauma. And then this bookshelf is all about healing gardens. So a little pretend lavender. So looking across a whole bunch of areas. This is actually my favorite book in this section, Therapeutic Landscapes. Good book. Essential Oils of the Bible, but across different people's belief systems. The Art of Ritual kind of ties into adult play therapy and the embodiment of both the trauma but also the healing. So lots of stuff around herbal remedies, horticulture therapy too. Great information about horticulture therapy and butterfly gardens. Little kid books about gardens and kind of across the board. Here's some paints for painting rocks and different kits about doing mandala stones. And then some of my resources on labyrinths. A lot of them are at home right now because I'm trying to read them. Actually, out of the labyrinth books, I love this book, Through the Labyrinth. It's probably the best resource that I have on labyrinths. And then there are 5 bookshelves of children's books. So pretty much across the board, like, you know, Mr. Worry, a story about OCD, lots of books about trauma, lots of books about attachment, you know, The Invisible String, you know, just wonderful resources that clinicians use with kids. Little Miss Spider, such a good book on attachment. Mr. Thought So, which Dee Dee, who used to own the self-esteem shop, had suggested back in the day. So lots of resources, lots of books about, you know, sexual development, but also sexual abuse. You know, the Tony Cavett book from back in the day. So some that are more, you know, they're great and they've been around, and some that are more recent. And then this section is all about loss and grief. So a lot of information, of course, Kubler-Ross, but different things from more recent times too. And some scattering of different classes that I went to. That was a class from back in grad school on bereavement. Lots of things around grief. And then this section is specifically about suicide, both surviving and theoretical pieces around it, and assessment of current. And then these, actually, I still have a little bit of organizing to do. So there are some places where I have this actual bottom shelf is needing to get categorized and put where it belongs, but there are thousands of books here. So I just haven't done that bottom shelf. This is, I had Phyllis Booth supervise me, so I have all of my notes from talking to her. And books about parenting on these 2 bookshelves. And really across theoretical orientations and ideas, like I have Dobson, and then I have clinicians related to family therapy and genograms. Oh, the Family Crucible from back in grad school. And resources that I find very helpful, like No Drama Discipline by Siegel, and any of his books on parenting, although probably most of them are in my consulting room, so I can share them with parents. This is a wonderful book on divorce called Helping Your Kids Cope with Divorce the Sandcastles Way. So a lot of resources related to parenting. A lot of notes from that. And then these two bookshelves are all about attachment, which is one of my favorite presenting issues. Good information on touch, wonderful resources on parenting children who've been adopted. Oh, this Handbook of Attachment is a wonderful resource. Wonderful, wonderful things. Theraplay with Phyllis Booth and Anne Jernberg. Those two were foundational in lots of people's understanding of working with attachment. Oh, Ghosts from the Nursery. Handbook of Attachment. Attachment Theory, that's a good one too. It's pushed back a little too far to see easily, but co-sleeping stuff, attachment information. Oh, that's a great book. The Attachment Disorganization. A little bit of object relations stuff. Oh, the interpersonal world of the infant. Stuff that makes you giddy. So good. Games to play with 2-year-olds when you're working with those kids 3 and under. And actually kids with attachment issues that didn't get what they needed 3 and under. Attachment in adults. And then some more trauma stuff and relating to attachment. Oh yeah. Things around child sexual abuse, interviewing and testifying, the courage to heal from long ago, but still a great resource. So this section is really good for stuff around attachment and trauma. Again, that Theraplay stuff. Circle of Security, breastfeeding. That's an excellent book. Like basically cover to cover research on breastfeeding and the history, attachment in adulthood. Ooh, the Handbook of Infant Mental Health. Like actually my library makes me super happy, and sharing it with other therapists here is wonderful. Oh, the General Theory of Love. That's a fun read. When Love Is Not Enough. I like that book a lot for helping adoptive families with structure, but I don't like it without a lot of clinical guidance because I think it can be misinterpreted and applied. But oh, and look at John Bowlby's trilogy. I'll call it a trilogy. And then his A Secure Base, Winnicott. Ooh, Maternal Bonding. So some of these old books that I have went back and read that were really powerful. Oh, there's Brody's The Dialogue of Touch, Becoming Attached, some Theraplay stuff. And then actually this is a window out to the labyrinth, but from the lower level. So it's North Dakota, there's lots of snow, but the labyrinth is right there. Now these next few bookshelves, this top one is all about ADHD. And this next one is all about autism, or what used to be called Asperger's. So lots of awesome reads on autism. And then this next one is all about sensory stuff. When you see kids with attachment, they tend to have sensory pieces to them. And I have a few multiples here and there. Now these are books that are related to social skills or different things around social interaction, especially for kids with autism or ADHD. You can apply them for kids with trauma. And now this row is all about children with oppositional defiant disorder, but often that can actually be conceptualized as definitely having to do with emotion regulation and also sometimes attachment. And, you know, Ross Green being one of those people, multi-systemic treatment, that's another thing that I think is very helpful treatment. So yeah, lots of stuff from people who look at kids in a way where it's like, you know, Ross Green, for example, looking at how we can love them and help them in a relationship so that they can be at their best instead of consequencing them, because that we know is not the most effective. But then, you know, kind of across the board, like I like to have a little bit of everything. Now this right here, there are a few things that are written by people or about specific people, you know, with different things, so different diagnoses. So like a story about Temple Grandin. And this lower section, this is mostly about addiction to stealing, which we see often in children who have attachment issues or mood dysregulation, and also addiction to pornography, which again we see in kids who have some of those mood dysregulation concerns. And then more information about these pieces. This one is all about basically like how do you help kids get services through schools. And there are a bunch of resources here. There are a couple, this is actually a very good book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, about accessing internet pornography in young children. And here's one about pornography addiction for teenagers. So again, some lying, stealing. This book, High Society, is kind of an older book, but it's very, very good. About basically environmental things related to starting to use substances. That social skills picture book I think is great for kids with autism, but actually kids with reactive attachment too. They don't always learn those things. Some sensory pieces. So lots of pieces. This is mostly integration of education, and basically I took a couple years trying to study things like how do kids learn science, or how do they learn different concepts around writing a narrative, not because I wanted to do English teaching, but because I wanted to help kids tell their trauma narratives in a way that would help them. So I wanted to learn from English professors how kids tell stories and learn how to tell them. Now this is stuff around spirituality. So some good resources. Yeah, spirituality in psychology is very important. Then we have some young and different kind of like foundational people that across theoretical orientation we want to know a lot of information about them. The lighting is, Rollo May, Erickson, Rogers, and a bunch of stuff on Gestalt because that's a great area to look at when you're working with children in play therapy. Now this section is all about both women's history and African American history and Native American history. Some more stuff on, well, that's mostly cultural issues in therapy and stuff on feminism, and then human intimacy and sexuality in this bookshelf. And now I haven't totally gotten through all of my boxes of books, but hidden behind this on here is a whole bookshelf of books about Black history or African American history. Oof, very, very important books to understand issues around history of a group that has not, like, actually it's very traumatic, some of the history, so it becomes a therapeutic issue. And just knowing it is important. And then this whole section here is about basically psych testing. Play diagnosis and assessment. Some of my books back from starting in 1989 around intro to psych. And then there are 3 bookshelves, there will be 4 when I finish this part, that are play therapy toys that people don't need all the time. Like in that cardboard box is a courtroom, so clinicians don't need that in their office every day, but if they have a child who does need it, we have it. And lots of stuff on medical trauma, again, that you don't need every day, but you might need, so we can share it. Oh, like this is a marionette, and you can use her to talk about, basically it's a Paris Goodyear-Brown intervention where you talk about sexual abuse and how it wasn't a choice, it was something that the person who was abusing you had you do, so it helps the child understand that they may have, quote, done some things when they were sexually abused, but that was abuse. It wasn't a 4-year-old's choice to do that. And then lots and lots and lots and lots of excellent play therapy toys. Like the Survivor's Journey is a wonderful game for children who've been sexually abused or adults. Sticks and Stones. Well, Heartbeats is a really good one for adolescents. The Goodbye Game is a great one for children who have grief and loss. And of course the Talking, Feeling, and Doing game. Like, just lots of resources. I love that anger solution game. So a lot of different games. that we use therapeutically. And then these two bookshelves are combinations of books related to emotion regulation, affect regulation, how that develops. Ooh, the Shore book is so good. And the Handbook of Emotion Regulation. Those two are excellent. Actually, we have a couple different editions of that. Self-regulation, so really helping people understand that self-regulation only comes from having co-regulation initially. Great stuff. And lots of things around bipolar disorder, mood. But then this section has CBT as well. So actually CBT, behavior mod, EMDR, ACT, so wonderful resources for clinicians to use in helping kids. Some things around schema therapy, narrative therapy, family therapy, things around divorce. DBT, a lot of different workbooks that clinicians can use, kind of across diagnoses, and more workbooks that we can use. Great Lowenstein books, you know, old classics like Mind Over Mood. And then actually what I have to categorize a lot more at this point is I have a lot of my notes from the last 30 years of either lectures or conferences. And then the next two bookshelves are about mindfulness. So many, the Pema Chowdhury books that are just, I love them. And then we also have some DVDs, a Panda Puppet, lots of DVDs. And, you know, there are a lot of good cards that you can use. Actually, the very, very best one, in my opinion, is Yoga Pretzels. I like to use From Head to Toe game with helping kids do progressive muscle relaxation, some yoga stuff. Lots of resources. Most of this row, like Thich Nhat Hanh, most of this row are books that I use with the child. Moody Cow. Oh my goodness, the Moody Cow books are so, so, so good. Moody Cow Meditates, that's my favorite one of the Moody Cows. That's a book that I wrote back in the day. And then these are a lot of books on meditation. That mindfulness book is very good. The imagery book was one that I had back in my master's program. Lots of things around meditation, mindfulness, yoga. that book on forgiveness is really powerful. Research and practice. Oh, this one. Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga. That is written by someone who's worked with Vanderkolk. And actually this book on the Handbook of Mindfulness, back to back, cover to cover, research and practice. So a really helpful book. I enjoyed this healer's book too. It basically talks about what makes a clinician extraordinary as a person who can be present with the patient and help them. So I really recommend that one. And then a lot of different CDs. Actually, I have cassettes in here too, from way back in the day when I was working on the library. My office manager had never seen a cassette player that was like the one that I had and still have, because you need to be able to use it to listen to cassettes. And anything by Pema Chowdhury. A couple more shelves of things around yoga, mindfulness. And then this section is about drumming, music therapy, the Beat the Odds curriculum that we use here, but a lot of things around music and different ways of doing some drumming. And then different CDs around children's CDs, but also some, contemporary books. This section here has a lot to do with psychosis in children and also adults, and a few books that were written by either someone with bipolar or parents of kids. This Psychotic Symptoms in Children and Adolescents is probably one that I would highly recommend. They're all good, but I really love that one. The Price of Silence, from a mom's perspective. And then this section is one related to cooking, and specifically because we have the Connections Kitchen, and doing cooking with children and families can be very therapeutic and easily transferable to the home, which is what we want to be able to do. So thank you for watching this video about the garden, or the library at Chrysalis, that therapists can use to provide best care for the children, adolescents, and adults that we see here. Thank you so much.